Nerissa, thank you so much for joining us.
Yay! Thank you, Justin. Thanks for having me.
It's good. There was never any hesitation. I've known you for many years through the recruitment industry and obviously in the outsourcing space as well. So yeah, there was no hesitation when we started doing what we're doing. I wanted to have you on board. I appreciate your honesty always, which I have no doubt you're going to share today. And that's, I think maybe some people need to hear some honest and hard truths that outsourcing is not always the key to all our problems.
Correct. So we're going to keep it
Exactly.
real today, Justin.
Good. All right.
Keep
I
it
want you to keep
real.
it real. Um, Now, look, there's obviously a lot of people that don't know that much about outsourcing, right? And I think for a lot of people, there is still, especially in Australia, that perception that outsourcing is just that shitty contact center in Delhi, right? And that's the extent of their knowledge for a lot of people. It's come so much further than
Yes.
that, right? So I think what would be great just to help people understand is for those that have a knowledge or have worked with recruitment agencies locally in Australia, working with an outsourcing provider like you, how's that different to working with an agency?
Okay, well, there's different flavors, but I'll talk about specifically with us. Really, your expectation, the biggest thing when you decide to hire people overseas is you want to get the recruitment right, because it doesn't matter how great your culture is or your processes or your training. If you don't invest time in the recruitment, it will fail, just like
Mm,
it does in Australia, whether you go
mm,
through a recruitment agency or do it yourself. So I would talk through, invest the time in the recruitment process and partners with someone who wants the same outcome. So for
mm.
us, our philosophy has always been, we want to get it right. We want to help the client get it right the first time. But we also appreciate, regardless if it's more cost effective, people in business still want people with them long term.
Yes.
So retention is really important. So that really ties into the BPO industry can be, seats filled. That's how they make money. They have an office, they need 500 seats filled. So it's kind of spray and pray.
Yeah.
Our philosophy is we spend the time to ensure that we can basically create a job description on steroids. And both parties, the person coming on board and the client, understand how you're going to assess that. And you can get some amazing talent in these countries across all disciplines, where I think traditionally, like you said, BPO is considered to be like call center.
Yeah. We just need a bum on a seat. We need a task done. Whereas with you, there's a face to a name. This is an individual. It makes no difference whether they're working remotely from Bondi or Narang or Manila, right? They're part of
Doesn't
your
matter.
culture and part of your team.
Yep. And I think it's gone away from just always being process orientated roles, which is still important, of course, but to strategic client facing roles. And I think that's when people understand the breadth and depth of experience in these countries and the knowledge that they can bring, I think it can be a game changer.
I agree. And like we've got a client facing role in our team, right? That's based over in Manila, and Kate's absolutely fantastic. And I think that's part of the stereotypes that's important to be able to kind of break down that the English and the communication skills are on a par. With us over here as well. So that's a good kind of segue into the markets that you guys operate in. So I know you're in Philippines, and
Yes.
you've recently opened a market in an office, should I say, over in Vietnam as well. Why is that?
Yeah, good question. So we've been in Philippines 8 years. We've been in Colombia too. Vietnam is a month old. But the reason is a lot of our existing clients in Australia have started to build teams in Colombia because they wanted that 24/6 support. So when they're sleeping or when we're all sleeping, because obviously I'm in Brisbane, we've got people doing the work. But also I think people are conscious of, okay, how do I expand to another country that it's more cost of than the salaries are even cheaper, if I can say that, in the Philippines. It's a different type of style of person because Philippines in the last, I think, 12 months, I've definitely noticed in the last 12, they just keep increasing. So I think people are really conscious of, look, I just want the best talent. And so we were thinking about with Australian companies, obviously Southeast Asia is where we tend to look at because it's same time zone. And Vietnam is well renowned, particularly in technical talent. But even, administration, call center, surprisingly, when we were doing our research, accounting, it's a really big play. And I think, they work 40 hours a week like the Philippines, culturally really easy to work with. And their focus is basically like Colombians, get shit done. So we really wanted to give our clients, and we kept hearing from our clients, it wasn't just some random decision, that, hey, we want more opportunities to spread our risk, but also to have different options with talent, because it's all about where's the world's best talent. And that's what I think people who are along in the journey are looking at. They're not just going, oh, there's only one country I can go to. So to give an example, I was just talking to one of our US clients, and they've been in with us for Colombia for 2 years. Their whole team's with us in Colombia. And now they feel confident enough to explore other regions. So now they've decided to definitely go with Philippines and Vietnam. So when they're sourcing roles with us, they've now got 3 different countries to choose from. So again, it's not just the best talent in that country or in that region. It's great. I've got 3 countries.
It's country agnostic. Just get us the right talent, the best
It's
one.
all about the world's best talent.
Yeah.
Or getting the right talent. And that's what we always say. It doesn't matter where people are. Ultimately, we all want people who live our values, our company missions, who we get along with. And that's why we say, people think, oh, it's just some rando at their house doing some work. No, you have to like them. That's what I say. It's like, you like them just as like you with your Australian team. They can't just technically be able to do the work. If you want longevity and you want to work with them and make them feel like they're part of your business, you have to like them.
Yeah, I agree. It's got to be both ways. Like that's the sad thing when you hear people that make a placement and they just sit there in the dark and they just get CC'd on the occasional email and get told what kind of tasks to do, and that sets you up for failure, right? And that's what I'd love to understand. Like, give us the honest opinion, right? Where do companies fail when they try and outsource and then they think it's just this magic bullet that all of a sudden, it's so expensive to hire these people in Australia. All of a sudden, wow, I can do this for a third of the cost overseas, and then they get it completely wrong and then tell everyone that outsourcing does not work. Meanwhile, it is working well for others. Where are these missteps normally taking place?
Yeah. I think there's lots of things. So on a cultural perspective, if you don't treat people like people, regardless of where they are on earth, don't do it. Okay, so they are people who have, again, whatever country we're talking about, who have dreams, visions, they want career paths, they want training and development. So you need to go on seeing it's a person who's joining my team, not a robot to do it. I think people often think it's a silver bullet. And I always say, just like when you hire in Australia, you don't just sit someone, hopefully, you don't just sit someone at their desk and go, okay, first day, go, figure it out. So a lot of people don't want to invest time in training. So I always ask people, what's your onboarding program? What's your plan? And most people are like, oh, I don't have one. I'm like, well, that's really important. Even in that first week. And I give a lot of advice around, like, to set people up for success, what that should look like. But you have to think about, it's going to be annoying training someone because you're training them 8 hours a day, then doing your job at night. But that's exactly what you do if you're hiring locally. Yeah. So if you're not willing to invest time in training, onboarding, and it's probably 99% going to fail. I think
keeping them engaged the whole duration that they're with the organization.
Yeah, they have to be. You want to set people up for success, right? The other thing is, I think, communication. I think we all forget, you're remote, our business is remote. You forget about the water cooler conversations. So if you've got a team, say in Sydney, and people are sitting together, even if it's 2 days a week, you have to remember that your international team, they're not privy to those conversations. They're not privy to the atmosphere of what's happening in the business. I bet if you walk in to work into your office and you just had a bad meeting or something pissed you off, everyone can feel it, right? I hope so, because I am. Everyone can tell when I'm upset.
Oh yeah, no, they know.
Like,
they know.
Yeah. Right. So people naturally go, okay, maybe it's not now the best time to talk to Justin, or they understand the gravitas of situations. Whereas when someone's remote, they don't feel that energy. They don't have that vibe. They don't have that context. So I always say making time to talk to someone in the morning and before work. And mate, I was fucking terrible at this myself. So I'm preaching from someone who knew how to make this work. And how I've done it is I literally had to put, this is no joke, 15-minute, calendar invites in my day. This is for me to get in the habit where I have to actually talk to my PA.
I'm exactly the same.
Oh,
Since
really?
having a PA, it taught me to be a better communicator. And I was
Yes.
always because always with the team over here, I was like, does this need to be a meeting? Can we just not talk about it for 2 minutes and then just move on and do it? And let's just execute, right? I'm so kind of opposed to meetings the whole time. It can, if this is a quick conversation on the phone or face to face, let's just do that and crack on. And yeah, it forced me, so we have all hands, Monday morning and on Friday, and I'm so glad that we don't. So I agree with you. It's
Yeah, it just
but
builds
yeah,
that connection too, that emotional connection. Filipinos, for instance, are the most emotional people in the world. Australians are number 56 on the global scale. So you
really.
imagine us Aussies, we're dead inside. And then you've got people who work with you who it's not about common sense. They literally think, which is fine, by the way, there's no problems with this, but you need to understand it if you're working with Filipinos, is they think differently, their outcomes will be different, how they process things are differently, and that's okay. But you do have to come both parties. They've chosen to work for an Australian company, yes, but we still need to understand how to best engage and work with them in a way that they understand.
Mm.
So getting back to the obvious, and I know it sounds obvious, but video communication is important because that's that emotional connection. They can see your face, you're seeing their face. So I say turn the video on. Make sure they're involved in, even in strategy meetings, because if they're the only one that's not hearing about what's happening with the business and the strategy moving forwards, again, it's a disconnect. So everyone in the world wants to feel like they belong and matter, and everyone is important. So I think the other thing is companies where it goes wrong, you have to be very conscious of, if we're going out for Friday night drinks, okay, what do I order or for my international team? Do I give them money? Do I just clock them off early because we're heading out at 4? And again, it's consideration because they're not there, you don't often think about it. So I think it's being conscious about things. The other thing where I'd say potential clients go wrong is they don't do regular reviews. So distance creates risk. So we're always about how do you mitigate your risk? So I'd always say, particularly with international or remote staff, regardless of where they're on Earth, is having more regular reviews. In Australia, our environment, right, it's more like, if I don't hear from the boss in a year, life's good.
Yeah.
Don't you reckon? Like it's more like, maybe I get an annual review and I get a pay increase, awesome. But if I don't hear from them, that's amazing. But where Australian clients get frustrated is Australians are actually super nice. So the thing is, we will accept things. So people make mistakes, we fix it forever, ever, ever, ever. And then one day we blow up and go, you're crap. See ya. The way to overcome that frustration and those issues is having scheduled catch-ups, or I call them reviews. Even if you can do it once a month, if that's too much, at least 3 months. And you're like, what's working, what's not working? And here's what I need you to do. So I think you've got to be quite conscious of that, because in our culture, it's not regular.
Yes.
It's maybe once a year, but that's not enough.
Mm.
When you've got someone who's not, you're not in the same country as you.
Yeah, that's actually really important and good lesson for me as well, right? Because I've always, with the local team, you know, when someone starts, hey, I just want to check in, you don't want formal, you know, reviews, performance reviews, and that's not my style. If there's any feedback, I just like to give it on the fly, right? But I should definitely kind of consider doing it more kind of in a more structured process, I think, moving forward with the offshore team.
Yeah, and I think it's not just constructive feedback, but I think we all need to be conscious of giving praise. You
Yeah.
know, like, hey, good job, verbally, you know, in a chat, and then demonstrate that. Like, if, you know, like our COO, I went and bought him a coffee the other day, we're out, like, he's not like going, oh my God, Nerissa, you're amazing because you bought me a coffee. But if I did that for my staff overseas, they would be like, wow, Nerissa's really thought about me.
Mm.
And a coffee isn't small because I've had to take the time to, you know, do a gesture. So it's very much appreciated. So I
Yeah.
think you have to be also very conscious of, how do I engage people again? And if you're looking at it from a pure commercial view, right? If you like hate all that stuff commercially, of course, if you look after people, logic is they tend to look after you and your business and what you want to achieve.
Exactly.
And then I think, sorry, I know there's lots of tips here about where people go wrong. I think the other thing is they want to put everything in one job, where
Right.
that's a common thing. So I had recently, this is pretty funny, a company say, I want what type of developer was it? It was a full stack developer who was also going to be their executive assistant.
Ah, right.
I
Okay.
did the same thing. I actually laughed and I said, two different brains. There's two different attributes. They do two different things. Do
Have
you
you
think
ever tried to get a dev to do admin? Does not work.
it will never happen? And so I explained, and again, sometimes it's just saying, hey, you know, in Australia, well, do you think you could find someone? No. It's the same internationally.
Yeah.
A dev should be saying 10 words and they say 3. You know, they
Yeah.
don't like to be interrupted. They're fully coding. They like to be in a dark room with black curtains and their hoodies up, and you know, an administrator has a different skill set. So I think the biggest thing is you have to really know, what is it I'm trying to do? What is the outcome I need? And where is that best position? Not, oh, it's cheaper and I'll just throw everything at it and this person can be like this unicorn master of everything. No, specialists.
Absolutely. I agree. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like that example that you give there, I think there's some people that almost view outsourcing as giving them a salary. They'll just appreciate doing any task, right? Whether it's EA admin work in the middle of writing code, right? Which is not the case. And I think as we've realized, right, Filipino talent are incredible. They're amazing. They're so aligned to who we are as Australians, and that's and to the rest of the globe as well. You've got Australia, you've got the US, you've got the UK, all hunting for the exact same talent at the moment. And there's going to be a talent shortage in the next couple of years. People are already feeling the pinch over there. You've got to treat your talent so well, right? If you don't, I can assure you right now, and you know that they've got multiple opportunities that will be knocking on their door as well. And so
Exactly.
get it right from the first time.
And the good news is for Aussies is the Filipinos, well, actually Colombians and Vietnamese are the same. They actually love working for us because, you know how I alluded to before that we're so polite? We actually are. So it's not shocking when someone says, why do you keep saying please? Why do you keep saying thank you?
Mm.
And I'm like, I don't know, it's courtesy. But that's not normal. That's not necessarily normal business behavior from other Western countries.
Mm.
So the Australian way of communicating and treating people as equals is really valued in other countries. And yes, you're right. The Americans, in terms of talent and salaries rising, people getting headhunted all the time, and the Americans win talent a lot because they throw money at it. Most Australian companies cannot compete. Our dollar is not as strong, but also that's not the solution, right? Money, you'll be shocked at how many people will stay with you, not because of money, but it's for all those other reasons. You know, that people stay with you in Australia. So it's really tapping into paying people well, but also understanding that they're getting approached all the time. So make sure they're, they feel like they're doing valuable work. And even some people are like, oh, but it's data entry, it's monotonous. Yeah, but you need someone to do that because that affects another department. It relieves workload of someone else. So that's valuable. So it's,
Yeah,
again, treating every role as you're important. What you do makes a difference in our company. And I appreciate that.
absolutely. And then it doesn't become just about the money. And we see that
It's not about
with
them.
my EA, right, who she reads probably every email that comes through before I do, right? So she knows more about me and about the business than, probably some of the other team members as well. And I remember late last year when the local market started like getting a little bit kind of quieter. Kate was obviously, very much aware of everything, going across the business, and we have like wellness vouchers that everyone on the team gets to use every month on anything from a haircut or a massage or your gym membership that you can use. And I said to Kate, hey, you haven't used yours for the last couple of months. And she's like, oh, look, I know that, the market's quietening down a bit. So, cash is really important at the moment. So I didn't want to, be spending extra money like that. And just like, that's the level of thoughtfulness, I think. And while I'm tooting a horn as well, we went out for a team lunch, and so I gave her, some money to be able to use, and over at Cebu, and to take some of her friends out for lunch. They ended up organizing with the local city council and did a feeding day, and they went to the local tip, and they fed 100 homeless kids, like her and her friends. And that's how she wants to spend her weekends. It's amazing. So
It's
blessed to have
amazing.
people like that in the team. Yeah, I love it.
Yes. And they're very conscious of community. And I always say, particularly with, I'll talk about the Filipino culture, community is very important. So you'll notice if sometimes people say, I took the job because they give to charities. And Australian charities, mind you, not necessarily that, but they feel like, great, you look after people, you're looking after the community, and that's what's really important to them. So it's very holistic viewpoint of why they choose to work with us. And again, leads into, like, you understand that that's important to her and she values it. So that will help you when, okay, what do I need to do to make her feel like she's giving love back to the community? Because that's obviously important, and that's how I'll retain her.
Mhm. Mm. Yeah, no, that's really helpful. So we've cut off. So there's a couple of kind of factors for people to succeed, right? And being
Yes.
able to hire some amazing talent over there. I'm keen to know what are some other kind of nuances. So you mentioned obviously on the emotional scale, there's quite a few differences there. I know they've got that very kind of hardworking ethic as well, which I find is amazing. What else is similar or a little bit different that future employees should consider?
So Filipinos are 86% of Filipinos are Catholic. And so Justin, with your team locally, do they ever talk about like their religious beliefs or God, or bring out Bible verses in your chats?
They're a bunch of heathens.
Right? Okay. So I always say, because it can be quite confronting when you're in a team meeting. My team do this all the time, by the way. And they're like, this is the Bible verse, and they'll have the scripture on screen saying this has impacted me today. Or they'll actually put it in our chat going, I read this last night and I feel like this is important. We actually had one of our staff say to our CEO, oh, I really want to pray for you for 2024 and make sure it's a great year. And he was like, well, that's lovely. She proceeded to pray in the video meeting. And he was like, oh, okay. And so he closed his eyes, and it went for like 30 minutes, this prayer. Where of course we're gracious because we understand, but if you're not aware of that, it can be like, oh, we don't do politics, we don't do, but I think you must understand that God is part of who they are and it's part of their culture. It's very important. So when they say, God bless you, I'm praying for you, here's some scripture, it's important that you and the business locally understand that it's not a political thing. You just go with it. You be gracious and you're like, yes, because it can be quite challenging. Because Filipinos don't care what religion you are. They don't care if you don't believe in religion, but it's just part of like who they are as people. It just comes out in the workforce, where in our workforce, we don't talk about that.
Yes. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's really important to consider. And I think the other thing, have you heard of Filipino time?
No.
Have you heard of island time before?
I've heard of island time, yes.
Okay. So, you know, you're going to Fiji, you say, oh yeah, we'll meet you at the bus at 9, and 11 o'clock, the tour guide rocks up. It's like, yeah, whatever, I'm here. Yeah. So Filipino time is a real thing. What that means is 9 does not mean 9.
Hang on, are we encouraging people to hire Filipinos here or not?
Yeah, we are. So
Okay, I'm good.
I'm talking through, like, there's nothing wrong with this. It's about how do you best work understanding, right?
Yeah.
Because that's their culture. That's how they roll, right? So when you know, okay, time can be fluid in terms of deadlines and things, what Filipinos really respond well to, and they find it very, it helps relieve a lot of emotional stress, is giving deadlines and being specific. So not saying, oh, by the end of the week, it's
Right.
saying, you know, Friday, 28th of June, 4 p.m.
Right.
And that gives them like that psychological safety,
Mm.
but it's also you're adapting to them, understanding that that really works
Mm.
in their culture. So it's things like that, that it's little things, or the word ASAP. Do you use that?
I use it probably way too much, yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually a word that is not in the Filipino language. It does not exist. So I always say to clients, don't assume, you know, like, so if you use the word ASAP, you got to explain to all your staff, not just your international teams, what does that word mean to you? So Justin, if I was to ask you, if you wrote to me saying, I need this ASAP, what did you want me to do? What would you want me to do?
Drop everything and prioritize that.
Right. That's how I see it. But other companies, when you ask them that, they'll say, oh, finish what you're doing and then go to that. So
Yeah.
always say anything ambiguous, be clear.
Mm.
And that's not just a Filipino thing, by the way, that's a people thing. But again, it's like, it's just some very small cultural differences, but you're setting them up for success and you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really important. I think especially if you're hiring an EA or assistant in that way, it's so easy to just throughout the day flip, hey, can you respond to this email? Hey, can you please find this data? Hey, can you just just give a lot of those little kind of tasks on the flow. Yeah, it makes me kind of realize that I'm probably not very kind of clear in terms of, where those priorities should lie. And that's something that I could probably look at doing better as well.
Oh yeah. Look, oh, I'm glad you're learning. The other thing I think is Filipinos are so kind-hearted and they're so want to please. And if you're like me, you know me, like I sent an email at 2 o'clock the other day, and I have had people like literally respond, or they put it in a chat when I'm sending it at 6 in the morning. And so it's just, we have to educate our teams now saying, hey, please don't clock on until you start shift. Because in Aussie, they might see it at midnight, but they know, they would be like, fuck that, I'm not going to answer that. I'll do it when I start tomorrow. But Filipinos are just so wanting to help. They're like, oh, it must be important, so I will respond and action it. So it's also being really conscious of when you're on the go and you're thinking you can't remember when they finished, is saying, hey, I appreciate all the work you do, but if I'm sending you something at 9 o'clock, unless I say it's urgent and I'm calling you, please don't do it.
Right.
Because they will go above and beyond.
Mm. Mm.
So I think, yeah, you have to be really conscious of that.
Absolutely. It's managing expectations again.
Yep.
Comes back to the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, great. Well, I'll edit out a bit here. I think that's good. I really like that. That's good. I think there's some good content there. Hey, we said we were going to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it's just the little, it sounds funny, but it's the little things that often make the biggest difference. You know, that if you know, you're like, oh, great, I can adapt that, or I can, if that's important, then I'll change my communication style. And again, you're being conscious of their culture and respectful, and getting, from a commercial aspect, getting the output that you need.
Yeah, exactly. And I find what's worked quite well for us as well is being really real and showing that, being willing to show kind of vulnerability in a way as well, right? And I find when I first went down the outsourcing route, it was a case of okay, I know you're religious and I'm not. I want to be careful of that. Please pull me up. If I ever say something that's offensive, I thank you so much for your time and sharing that. So people want to be able to work with you. Can you tell us a little bit about Filta, how you guys work, the different industries that you specialize in as well?
Yep, no problems. Basically, we are all about finding, hiring, and employing the world's best people easier for companies every day. We're an Australian-owned company. Our C-suite is based in Brisbane and Sydney. We've been established for over 8 years in Philippines and Colombia, and as I said, launched into Vietnam. We have our own recruitment methodology that's very much around, an executive search methodology. So it's very robust, again, about mitigating a company's risk to getting it right. We also have our own HRS system, which was all client-led, about what they needed to help manage their team themselves. I think people come to us because our offerings, advice, and our guidance is the same regardless of country. So they know if they're hiring in the Philippines, or if they're hiring in Colombia, if they're hiring in Vietnam, they're with people that you can trust, who's an expert in that area. I think one of the biggest advantages is we provide 24/6 support with a 15-minute SLA to companies. And we've absolutely identified right from the get-go is Australian, you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes you just want to call. If you want to call 20 times, no problems. Or you got an answer. And the biggest thing in this world, right, is we want to move fast. So we're very responsive. That's our mission for our clients, is we're here, we can handle it. You're not getting past to 10 different people. We offer 2 main products, which is recruitment and our employer of record services. So people who choose to work with us are people who are like, it's my team, my business, my people. Get out of my way. I want them to be enmeshed, in my vision, values, the way. Please make sure that you're doing the payroll, legal compliance, that side of things. So that's what's customers who want to work with us look for. And then I'd say, in terms of what I've seen specialties in the past 6 months, Australian companies asking for is definitely continually around administration, customer support, design, so graphic design, marketing, digital and traditional marketing, development, software engineering, and drafts people. You'd be surprised how many drafts people we do. Yes. So that's where I'd say in terms of areas of focus.
Excellent. So Nerissa, can you just tell everyone just a little bit about Filta Global, the company, and the type of industries and the roles that you focus on?
Yes. Okay, so Justin, we're an Australian-owned company, and we're focused about finding, hiring, and employing the world's best people easier every day. So we look after recruitment and payroll and HR compliance. In terms of disciplines, we predominantly focus on administration, accounting, graphic design, marketing, digital marketing, and drafts people.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Filtaglobal.com is where anyone can find out more as well. Nerissa, I think anyone who's listened to this is going to appreciate your honesty. And I think that's one of the really helpful things for some of the employers that have come to TalentVine and we've put in touch with you. You're always helpful and willing just to have that conversation, answer any questions that they might have to understand if this is the right fit for you. So those are conversations you're happy to continue having, I presume?
Absolutely. If anyone wants to catch up, I'll shout you a coffee. even if it's virtually, I can make it happen. Or if you want to catch up for a beer or wine, always available.
Nerissa, thanks again. We'll speak to you soon.
All right, see you, champ.